All right, live Sunday afternoon. We're going to promise to keep this a short one. We may not even come out and do anything for the first 12 minutes.
Just
gonna be me.
like
In honor of the Celtics. This is me
Yeah.
the whole show.
And just stare at each other. Okay? I guarantee we're going to put more effort into this than the Celtics put into the game today.
I think
this
was
bad.
Yeah.
This was so bad. This was the one team that you knew for a fact, if you did not give a decent amount of effort, you're going to get your ass kicked. Charlotte has been playing like this all season long. That's why they've been a top 5, top 6 team in the Eastern Conference, because what they may lack in overall elite talent, they more than make up for in competitive spirit, the ability to compete, and consistent effort. And our good friend Scary Terry was among the many bodies that was just absolutely killing them, the Celtics, in every way, shape, or form, both ends of the floor.
Right, yeah. Absolutely, and I think the Celtics try to get into like a shootout with these guys. It's like, no, that's not what you do against this team. You play hard, gritty defense and try to rattle them. And I thought it took literally about 2.5 quarters before they really tried, or at least maybe little spurts of it here and there. But for the most part, it was like, oh wait, okay, now we can come back again. You know, we can do what we've been doing before against this team. It's like, no, that's not going to happen, especially in Charlotte when everyone's riled up. What was it, 3 or 4 players, 3 Charlotte guys already in double figures by halftime? These guys are ready to go. They're ready to cook. You know, the Celtics needed to get back to that gritty defense and slow them down, punch them in the mouth defensively. It felt like they were too cool for school out there on defense. I didn't get it, at least in the first quarter. That's what it looked like.
That play where Tatum just nonchalantly throws the ball back and T. Rozier picks it off for the layup in the first quarter, to me was the game in a nutshell.
That's where it all fell apart. Yeah,
that's honestly might be the play you remember from the season.
Absolutely. We didn't realize at that moment that was going to be the game in a nutshell right there.
That might be the signature play of the season. Jimmy doesn't think so.
Low light. One of the signature low light.
You have to.
It's just emblematic of the who gives a shit. Just the worst ever. And you're a former teammate of yours who left. Who you got rid of is like
that was very symbolic. That it was Terry Rozier.
Thanks, losers.
Or how about Wanamaker with those floaters? I'm like, oh man, that was like your.
Well, stick on that Tatum play for a second.
That when he was on the Celtics, man, he was giving it to him.
I know everyone says, and we've talked about it at various points this season, that you can't bench guys. They don't do that in the NBA. Blah 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 blah. If you're ever gonna do it, it has to be there, even for like 30 seconds. You know, they go into a timeout.
Yeah.
Kemba's giving him an earful. Obviously, there was a big discussion on the sideline after that. But you just have to sit him down, reset, get his focus in the right place at the very least, and then send him back in there. To just run it out again after that, I thought was a terrible look. And it showed throughout the course of the game. Bunch of dead stretches, the defense obviously being an issue. But I thought the offense was as much of an issue. The movement wasn't there. It was just individuals trying to figure it out.
Perk said it on Locker Room last time. You know, I mean, how many times did he talk about, stuff that the coach has to do, and you absolutely should bench a guy if he's not playing well and if he's not doing stuff like I do not understand not pulling Tatum out of the game there at that time. That was an absolute message. Like, listen, guy, you're not there yet. And this is inexcusable. We have got one problem right now, and we keep bringing it up over and over again. We're really loose with the basketball, and we're losing this game, and you're just flipping it back there. And it's that general nonchalance he plays with from time to time that does drive people crazy.
It's the game on Saturday or Friday.
Last game, but
John, I thought you would have liked the emphatic, wholesome substitution that he did. I thought that was a message right there. No, you didn't think so? The dead ball, the full, wholesale substitution.
Yeah, they did it a few minutes later.
They did it later, though. That moment right there, you call a timeout.
You wanted it right there?
He's on the court to call a timeout before the layup even goes in. You sit him on the bench, at least Tatum on the bench. I would have pulled all the starters right there.
That's what I was thinking.
I would have taken the whole unit out.
To see that moment happen right then and
I tweeted it. I said, bench them all. But at that moment, at the very least, Tatum. Because you missed a shot to send a message, but also to the rest of your team that those guys aren't accountable. Like I said, I joked about it last game that Tatum's on an 8-second violation waiting to happen every single game. That nonchalance is a freaking killer. And people feed off it. Everyone's talking about like energy, play with
contrast it against the way Charlotte plays.
And play it versus Charlotte.
No, right.
They play with energy and they end up with open threes on the back end of those things. Like,
and that's my point too.
You don't have the artillery to match that exactly. Like you can't play like Charlotte. I mean, yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. That's the same attitude I'm talking about. That nonchalantness. That like, it's the Hornets.
I cut off Sherrod. Sherrod, you were trying to get in there real quick.
We'll catch up.
No,
that's the
real quick.
Yeah, you're right, Josue.
My thing is this. I think that picking on Tatum is just low-hanging fruit, and I'm with you. I think that whole group should have just been sat down because to me, it's not just the one guy. When you start looking at that entire unit and the lack of hustle, the lack of energy, I mean, freaking Miles Bridges, they're making him look like freaking Michael Jordan out there, pinning guys stuff on a glass, coasting into the lane uncontested. That should never happen.
Flying.
I don't care if Rob Williams is not around and you don't have that strong interior post presence. Guys should be put on their ass if they're going in the lane like that.
But you know what else?
One hard foul. You're not trying to hurt anybody, but you need to send a message.
Veterans, for the most part, right? That starting five, Kemba Walker, Tristan Thompson, like these guys are seasoned vets. Like, Kemba, you're back in Charlotte. I know it's cliche to assume or at least want to see him put together a great performance back home. It's been a while. It's been a couple of years.
I thought Kemba was okay tonight, but again, individuals didn't connect to each other and reinforce each other and make each other better.
I like how he was attacking the rim at least, but I just in that fourth quarter when the offense went stagnant. I mean, I just don't. Some of those layups, the up and under, like getting to the rim, just not getting it to fall though, like. It was tough, man. It was just frustrating to see, especially in the fourth quarter when they're 4 for 12 to start at the fourth. It's like, okay, well, this isn't happening. No comeback.
And for the analytics people out there, Tatum was a minus 28.
Analytics are not. You want to look at a simpler? Yeah.
Your best player, minus 28?
He played like a minus 28. He was invisible except for when he was doing something that was wrong or was something that was lazy or careless. Like, you just can't have these massive swings from your superstar player. There has to be some level of consistency at the top or everything below you just falls completely out of whack. Like, oh God, this is a game where Tatum's invisible. Okay. Hit the panic button. All of a sudden you've got guys coming in off the bench that are playing, in positions that they don't typically play in. They're playing more minutes than they should. And there's just no flow to the game. It takes a while for, when your top guy is just completely out of it, takes a few minutes for everyone to be like, okay, Tatum doesn't have it tonight. Let's, recalibrate here. And now, Brown's got to be, 2.0 and Kemba's got to, drop. Now you're banking on 25, 30 from Kemba if you want to have a prayer. It's like, you just can't have 55-point Jayson Tatum and then, 10-point Jayson Tatum. I know he ended up with 19, but we're talking about points that didn't even matter by the end.
Well, it's not, again, Josue mentioned going back to the last game with the turnovers late. It's a bunch of stuff. That lazy turnover there earlier in the game, just emblematic of the effort. But he had another one late in the game where he had a frustrating night shooting. Fine. He missed one down low. Might have been a putback. I forget what it was. And Charlotte went the other way. It ended up with that behind the back pass for the dunk on the baseline. Was it Washington? I can't remember who. But it wasn't quite a transition bucket. They came back, passed it twice around in a half-court set before they ended up with that basket 5-on-4. That's because Tatum was still jogging back and had just crossed half court and just appeared in frame at the 3-point line after Charlotte had already been whipping the ball around and setting up that bucket. That shit is embarrassing. And I went back and watched it again. He missed it and he hung his head and just 1 second later started jogging back on the
back to square one after a great month.
Not do that
after a great month. The whole team's back to square one.
You know what
can't
else
do it. You can't be the best player on a team and do that. You can't do it.
I think you especially can't do it because I think opposing teams they're hip to it. They're programmed to know as soon as you get a turn, as soon as you get that ball in transition, shoot it up the floor because there's going to be a 4-on-5 or 5-on-4. They know that the Celtics are going to be outnumbered because guys aren't going to get back. It's in their DNA now. This is part of their identity. The secret's out. You know what I mean? It's the same pattern. You could see all 5 guys from Charlotte, all 5 starters from the Hornets. They were all programmed that way defensively. This was
pretty much the same exact game as Friday. So you put the whole weekend in context, and that's what makes it so devastating. You can't write it off as a one-off loss. They did many of the same
and it wasn't
miscues and other things that they did on Friday that cost them that game. And frankly,
they were with all their players,
with everybody back.
Right.
Okay, so you lose that excuse to a much worse team too.
Even worse, right?
Yeah. A much worse team. all your players back, and
This is a
except for
team you
Rob.
beat by 30 at the beginning of the month.
This was the Marcus Smart STFU game, right?
Yeah.
Earlier, when they won those back-to-back games, Marcus shut down Terry, and they had a good game there. Again,
and now Wanamaker's circling the corner around Smart again. Oh, it's back to April 1st. The whole month is just a race.
I haven't even looked at the chat. I can't even imagine. I wasn't even sure.
A lot of fire.
I wasn't sure I was going to talk today. I was just going to stare at Bobby the whole time and just have him justify this team's existence. I was just going
to. You should.
And Bobby's got the
John. You got to post at least one of the screen. You got to post a screenshot from the group text, or maybe just share it. Just share one of the comments you said during the game because, man, John was on.
And the other excuse that's gone.
Forget.
There's a couple. Jimmy, help me out here. What's a good one that came from John? It happened right after halftime. At some point in the third quarter.
I had to go back. Yeah, you're right. There was a good amount of them today.
The other thing that makes this worse, and Sherrod alluded to it, those splits between the starters and the bench. When the bench came in this game, they actually held it down and at least stopped the bleeding on the defensive end of things. And you look at those plus-minus splits between those guys. It's like, -1, a couple of bench guys were actually in the positive, Fournier among them. This came down to those starters not getting it done and just getting brutally outplayed by Charlotte's group. And I thought the way Charlotte opened this game, we talked about the Tatum moment, but also attacking Thompson, because the Celtics were going right inside. They're like, all right, you're going to put PJ Washington at center. You're going to have the small ball group out there. We're going to try to attack you in the middle. And Charlotte was swarming. They were knocking the ball away from him in there. They were fouling him. A hard, nice foul early by Miles Bridges that set a tone. Thompson goes out there and misses a free throw. And the Celtics just kind of got out of their game trying to attack a mismatch that, frankly, they weren't all that well suited to attack. And it was a great move by Charlotte. Don't stop Biyombo trying to match up with Thompson. You have a faster, more versatile, quicker, more aggressive attack on the wings here. You can play a 4-style guy at the 5 against Thompson and not get burnt there. Just rotate inside and
you can
block
do it
his
almost
shot
all the time.
Yeah. Thompson was horrible in this game. He didn't react to what they were doing against him. He just kept going straight at the defense, how they were collapsing on him. And that set a bad tone early as well. And they kept going back to that. I know Brad doesn't have a great small ball personnel to match up with that this year.
Jabari would have been the answer here. What was strange was I was thinking the same exact thing, Bobby, and then I looked at the halftime splits, and Jabari all the way in, well into the third, was it 5
and again,
minutes?
No Luke.
5 minutes total. And while Charlotte's doing that with a small ball lineup, that seemed easy there. Or a lineup where Fournier was playing, and you had Tatum out there, and really no center.
You could put Tatum at Washington, Yeah,
exactly. You could have done that easily, and they didn't do it. Yeah.
Here's the problem, though, with playing Fournier and playing Parker more. The lack of practice shows when those guys are on the floor. There is a disconnect between what they're supposed to do and where they're supposed to be, especially and what Fournier, the hell is happening. And it seems to be throwing everything off. And it's not making an excuse for those guys, because if you're wide open, you should make the shot. I don't give a damn how much practice you have. But when you're supposed to be in certain spots, like when that Marcus Smart made that crazy-ass pass in the corner, which Fournier was supposed to be there, yes, Smart should have made the pass, but again, if Fournier would have had a better grasp of what the hell he's supposed to do out there, he would have been there for that. In this game, I thought there were multiple times where he just wasn't where he needed to be. Same thing with Jabari. And Jabari tries. You can tell that he's trying. His body simply can't get it done. That's why
that
he
missed
has
layup.
That was bad.
He actually had a decent defensive possession or two, I thought, in this game.
One or two. I need to see him more as a small ball 5, because I don't like him out there at all playing anything other than small ball 5.
I'm gonna regret saying this, okay, but I'm gonna say it anyway. What am I about to say?
Grant.
This might have been a Grant game.
Grant was all right. Grant was decent.
If you wanted to go small today, that's your given the fact that Fournier is still clearly suffering and Jabari's not there either, and are not ready for a larger assignment, but based on the fact that they don't know anybody on the team yet, really, and or they're not in physical shape to be doing, to be carrying the load. Grant might have been your small ball 5 answer today to counter this team. I don't love it because athletically, the smaller players Charlotte had out there were way more athletic than Grant, but I don't know what else he would have done there.
And this was one of the few games where Grant didn't play 20 minutes, which is kind of ironic. The one time where you probably should give him a little bit more runway, they pulled him back.
Meanwhile, Semi Ojeleye benched, Romeo Langford benched.
Semi's another one that fits against to counter what Charlotte was doing.
The two guys that started on Friday benched. The rotation's all over the place. Every single game, it's like a new game plan.
The Romeo part surprises me, but the Semi,
he's just blindfolded and just kind of throwing darts right now. I mean, it makes no sense at all. How do those guys not play a freaking minute?
Yeah, that's a good point. How are they not playing at all? I mean, they go from starters to not playing. You can't tell me that this team can't be that matchup based. That just tells me that that Brad thinks they all suck and that they just need to desperately hinge on matchup situations only to have a prayer. I mean, if this was a Grant game, yeah, Grant was fine.
I'm worried about Brad, guys.
He wasn't like a massive.
Yes, because Perk said so.
Like
oh yeah, we gotta have a Perk. We gotta have a segment about a Perk helping Bobby see the light. I guess.
Yeah,
so to speak. That's a tease. That's a tease right there.
A one-man intervention.
Yeah. More on that coming up.
A one-man intervention from Perk to Bobby, and those of you guys missed it. Perk freaking hung with us on Locker Room for 2 hours.
We hashed out a lot of things.
Kicked his feet up. Hung out,
wiggling his toes.
One of the best Friday nights I had in a while, guys. One of the best Friday nights for sure.
I'm hurt. That's such a Perk thing to do, though.
Dr. Pepper in one hand, Snicker in the other.
Yeah.
Reese Pieces.
He's the best, man. He's the best. He's the best.
Yeah.
So anyways, go on.
What did he tell you?
Real quick. No Perk today, but I just want to let people know we're still doing it after the game. Honestly, guys, if this is one you don't join us on, I don't know which one you're going to come on here at this point, because if you're not rip-roaring mad and want to have your voice heard today, that means you've lost the will to fight, okay? Because and we're close to that. Jimmy and I were close today. We're like, that's it. Done.
I don't want to do the show.
I thought he gave up before the show started.
I don't want to do the show. I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk to you guys. None of it.
Yeah.
But we're doing it. We're gonna jump on there, and at this point, guys, you should be. I'm almost thinking of heading over there now because I don't want to talk about them anymore. I want to hear you guys talk about them. So join us. Download it on the iOS store and come in after the game. Go ahead, Josue.
No, I was just gonna say, if you want, we can do the Bobby story, and then you guys can head over to Locker Room, and then me, Bobby, Jimmy, and I, we can wrap things up here. That's up to you.
Yeah, that's a good reminder for me.
No, we'll do that, but definitely join us afterwards because this is one of those therapy, kind of.
We need to come together and get this shit out of our system.
Yeah, we need to have an uncomfortable conversation, guys.
Yes,
right. And with that being said, Bobby, go ahead, lead us in. What's your thoughts on Brad Stevens now? What's your development? Talk about your development.
I mean, it's the accountability thing that he talked about. It's the lineups and game plans that are starting to fail in certain spots, not being able to make the most of the talent on hand. These things that we thought we were going to be able to count on him doing that he's done in the past haven't been there this year. And then it goes back to the ability to manage some of these stars and just the way they're reacting to him, because I do think he's a fantastic coach, and I'll always defend his ability to coach this team and X's and O's and all that stuff. But at some point, if the team's tuning them out to this degree, I don't know what else you do. I don't think it's a great response. I don't know if they'll be able to find someone better, but we're just seeing how this team keeps reverting back to this spot. And this is ultimately who they are, it feels like, this year, not the best version of themselves that we'd seen at other points this year. And so even on a healthy night like tonight, they've had excuses. They've had all the stuff that they've gone through. You still see it. And so I'm not there yet 100%, but I'm starting to think about it. Like, if this is how the season ends, if they're in a play-in game like this and it ends like this, I don't know how you can't do it. So it's all going to depend on how the year ends. Again, we know this team looks at the regular season as just like, this doesn't matter. We got to get healthy. We got to, get to the finish line, all that stuff. I know.
They're not good enough to do that.
It's not going to work for them.
That's the frustrating part about this team. They are not a team that has the capability of flipping a switch and winning 10, 12, 14 games in a row. They're not that good. And my problem right now isn't that they're losing games. It's the fact that they're showing a level of non-compete more times than they should. I don't care if you lose to Charlotte. Compete. Brad, for some reason, has not been able to get them to understand that you have to play hard every game. There are too many games where they're in this cool, easy breezy mindset where we're just going to roll out here and we'll figure this out at some point. And if we don't figure it out, that's okay because we got the future. We've got more games down the road. Well, the future is now, and it's not pretty. They have to do something, whether it's Brad cracking the whip and actually just really putting guys on Front Street and just saying, Tatum, we need Tatum to be more of this. We need Marcus to do this. We need Jaylen to do that. At some point, something has to change because whatever the hell he's trying to do to reach those guys now, it is not working at all.
Well, somebody tweeted it. It was actually Simmons tweeted it without actually Bill Simmons looking it up. That this was this is the 45th time they've been down double digits, and then he was actually corrected. They've been down double digits 34 times this season. Okay,
unreal.
And they've won 9 of
Feels
those
like
games.
more.
It feels like more, right? And so that's an insane amount, in the amount of games they've played. 60+% of their games are down. I mean, what are we looking at here? 60 games. 60 games. They play 61. They're down 34 of those, double digits. That's freaking embarrassing. That to me is, again, we talk, and again, I think we were talking about this on the thread. How many losses this year are there's 30, right now, what's the record? 30 and 29? 32 and 29. Out of 29 losses, again, off the top of your head, if you had to guess, what percentage do you think are straight effort losses? I think an extremely high percent of those. There's certainly times you run you run into a freight train for sure, but 10, 12, 15 losses, straight effort to a bad team or a beatable team. Tons of them. And that's embarrassing. And how many games you can count them on one hand where they just went out and flat out worked the team? I mean, there's a couple recently, Denver recently, very freaking few, very few. So this is.
Oh, did we lose John?
Oh, I thought it was me. Word.
All of us thought we were gone with the 1G. There you go, John. Let's take it back.
John, we missed the end of your rant there.
No problem. Listen, the effort stuff that's going to come back.
Effort manifests itself in many ways. Look at the turnover issue, and that's really Brad went on a tirade pregame. That's all he talked about on Saturday was ball control because that's what lost them the game against Brooklyn. Ridiculous stuff. I did a whole thread of just the goofy nonsense that went on in that Brooklyn game, which was just an inexplicable, inexcusable loss, all things considered there. And then they went out and did it again. Possession by possession from the opening minutes of this game right up until the end. And right throughout it again, they were within 9. They were within 12. If they could put it together for 4 or 5 possessions at a time, they'd be fine. And then you see Marcus Smart, end of the third quarter, racing into a foul, trying to draw a 3-point foul at the buzzer, and then it goes right back the other way to a Miles Bridges 3. And then they come out in the beginning of the fourth and start 2 for 14, and it's just like, was that moment that demoralizing for everyone? They couldn't talk that out and figure that out, and everyone just sunk their heads into the fourth.
But you know what, Bobby? My thing with that is this, though. Marcus was making effort. Was it misplaced effort? Yes, absolutely. But he was trying. He was actually putting together a tangible effort to try. Because if he gets that call, that's a 6-point swing. All of a sudden, it's a 6-point game as opposed to 12. We're not seeing enough guys making effort plays. That's my issue with this team. I don't care if you make a turnover, if it's an effort-related turnover, because that means you're trying. And that's not happening. Guys look like they're not trying. Right. And I can't understand how Brad can't get them to understand to me, the lowest denominator in winning and competing is effort. That's the one thing you should never have to worry about with your team. And that to me, that is the biggest issue with these guys. It's pathetic.
Right. It's amazing.
Pathetic.
Because when you compare it to a shot that's from Steph Curry land, right? That's not effort. At least Marcus Smart was trying to draw contact and get to the free throw line and seek out a high percentage, shot while the clock is stopped, because that's what they needed. They needed buckets.
I hated what he did, but I like the fact that he was at least thinking of doing something that required effort. And again, that's where his head was
yeah,
at.
look, I'll take effort
Tatum
over.
was driving to the rim too. You know, he got to the free throw line. He
So
was trying
here's
to
a
get that-
couple.
I'll
get
take
that-
effort over no effort, but you can't be friggin' dumb. And that was dumb. And hunting a
was
foul
dumb.
there, hunting a foul and then turning around and complaining to the official instead of running back
The
is
complaining
wrong.
part, the
Okay,
complaining
wrong.
part was a dumb part. That
Yes.
was a dumb part.
So-
But
And-
trying to do it, no.
And they have rested their heads on that all year. We've talked about the
They
refing
hunt
that's in their
fouls and they
heads.
turn around and they look at guys and enough.
I thought another moment.
The refs hate you. Okay, they hate you.
I thought another
They
moment.
still hate you.
Tristan Thompson lobbying on just a ticky-tack foul throughout the flow of the game, getting Brad to challenge that, like buying into that. And I know I was listening to Brad's pre-games probably 3 or 4 games ago with Grandy there, and they were talking about how often do you buy into the players telling you to challenge every call, and he's like, yeah, we press these guys, you can't get mad and expect me to challenge everything and this and that, we've only got one. And then he just folded to it. Like, he said this one thing on the radio and then did this other thing on the sideline. There are various things with Brad like that where he just hasn't been able to stand firm on the sideline. And again, I'm looking at the quotes out of this one, admitted he got out coached. So at some point, you can only change so many things about this team. This is stuff I think John and a couple of the others here have been tougher on Brad than me throughout the course of the season have said. Ultimately, going into this off season and this stuff continues, what can you change? Like, there's nothing easier than the coach.
So here's what I would have done. Okay, like, look, I don't mind playing
this revelation Bobby's going through.
But I don't mind playing the personnel games when you've got guys who can do different things well, playing to people's strengths. What Brad is doing is just closing his eyes and throwing darts. Okay,
Yep.
and that's what's off. Is I don't know. Let's see if this guy's got it tonight. Let's see if this guy. And this is why earlier in the year I was saying, commit to. I know I wanted to see Neesmith because I thought if you got him comfortable later in the year, someone like that might bear fruit over some of the other guys you have out there. But commit to the guys who you want to see make contributions for you and have them play and have them develop and give them roles. I don't understand starting guys and then playing them 0 minutes, giving Neesmith the run of 7 games where he's playing 15, 20 minutes and is coming in at the 6-7 minute mark of the first quarter, then going 7 games without playing a minute. I don't understand that. I don't think that's helping development.
He doesn't seem to have a philosophy.
It's not helping continuity. There's no philosophy. You have to determine, this is what I got. You're in the kitchen. These are the ingredients. Make a freaking meal. Don't just start throwing stuff in the pot and just hope it tastes good. Like, this is what you've got. You don't have anything different. And I know COVID and injuries and stuff, but you got to friggin' make a choice. And it just hasn't happened. And that's what's frustrating is you have no idea what you're going to get when these guys come in the game at any given time.
I think he's trying to empower guys like that, though, like Grant Williams and trying to show, like, you know what, I want you guys over there. I think this is the mix that's going to work. And meanwhile, guys like Romeo and Shemi are going to say, well, next time we get our names called, we're going to bring it because we literally got sat after starting, like you said, right? And I think that's just sort of his philosophy right now in trying to help the identity of this team, I guess. This is it, right? I mean, let's face it. This is what they do. You said it. The numbers say it. The numbers indicate it. They fall from behind and they try to fight their way back and do it off of pride. But obviously, a team like the Charlotte Hornets with plenty of weapons that have guys that are scoring in double digits it proved to be too much. I just thought that someone like Romeo Langford defensively, I didn't want him to start, but I don't understand the logic in not getting him out there, especially when the Hornets already drained 10 3-pointers by the third quarter or before the start of the second half. Like, let's just see what happens there. Let's just try him out, let him develop, but those
things that are so emblematic of Stevens' teams are gone. Ball control, that was a staple in years past. Defensive consistency, transition defense, pushing the break in your own front. I pushed this so hard on Friday. Ball movement, assists, that kind of stuff. We only see glimpses of it, and all of a sudden these staples of the teams in the past are gone.
You actually saw the Hornets play exactly how the Celtics used to play. Like, you couldn't draw it up any differently. I mean, hustling to the ball, less talent going in, but have more energy and more sort of desire to win. Whipping the ball around. I saw that they almost hit their franchise record for assists. They were only a few away from that today.
Yeah,
that just tells me that the
record
Celtics are just watching.
Assists.
39 assists against you is embarrassing.
That's
mean,
no
Most
grad
telling
team.
stat of the night. It was they had 34. Like I when I looked the first time, it was 34-13 in the fourth quarter. Ended up 39-18. But that's where it was. And again, the Celtics, Jaylen checks back in, Jayson checks back in. Good, give me the ball, dribble, 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 shoot. That's all they did all
almost
night.
embarrassing as the discrepancy in fast break points
Yeah.
on Friday. I mean, it's like they're getting worked one way or the other. Pick your poison of how you want to lose on any given night. It's like they
But
just
again,
don't match
They're not
it.
trusting the game plan. We've talked about this before. They don't trust one another to execute the roles that they're assigned to do. When you are playing a team like Charlotte and you know they're going to bring energy, you got to keep the ball moving.
But
You've
is there
got
a
to
game
keep the
plan?
ball moving.
Like in the sense of like, Sherrod, is there a game plan beyond like a youth league soccer coach telling his team, his bunch of fourth graders beforehand, have fun and play with energy, guys, and look for your teammates, and then sitting on the sideline and that's it? Is there a plan? Like, is it something that needs to be executed? Because at this point, we're talking 1 minute into the first quarter, they're already freestyling and doing whatever they want to do, careless with the ball, not hustling on defense. Like, if there's a plan, it goes out the window 2 minutes into every game. That's not a plan. That's a pep talk that nobody listened to prior to the game. We're not talking about run this set, run these sets, run this offense, work the ball through this person, do this every time down the court. There's nothing there that resembles structure at all.
And it's sad because you look at that very first possession. I thought that might have been one of their better possessions all season long. Tatum finds a way, gets perfect position on a block, lays up a shot. And my thinking is, if they go to this a couple more times, that's going to open things up for the perimeter guys. And if they get back on defense, next thing you know, you're looking at a potential.
Good point.
You're looking at a 10, 12. To me, when you play the right way and it works, why would you not keep playing the right way? I don't understand
That's what I don't get. They've seen it work. And exactly that. It's like you try it the coach's way and it doesn't work. And you're like, screw you. You don't know. I'm going to
know what it is too also. And they've done it so many times against other teams. It's like they get offended when a team goes off from the 3-point arc. And it's like they have to match that on the other end with 1, 2, 3 passes or not even and trying to chuck a shot up. And then they go back to playing the right way. They go back to playing the right way, and then Charlotte goes on for back-to-back 3-pointers, and then they go back to doing those same mistakes immediately.
It kills me because they do that in the first quarter, not thinking, well, we do have another 3 quarters of this damn game left to play. We don't have to get everything back in the next 3, 4, 5 minutes.
They go for the home run.
To use the baseball analogy, you're down 7 runs, and everybody's trying to hit a homer at the plate.
Just get a hit.
You need base runners. One stop on defense, and then a couple of passes the other way down. Work the offense. Get one bucket. And come back and play defense again. You cannot erase 18-point deficits with friggin' 3-pointers early in the shot clock. Just doesn't work.
That reminds me too, Josue, and you probably know this better than anyone, Sherrod, covering the team as long as you have. Forget Steven staples, Celtic staples in general, going back to like 2007. 3-point defense. This team's been like top 5, top 6 in 3-point defense back to like the Doc Rivers era. And this year they're getting slammed night in and night out. That is shocking.
Yep.
They have carried like those tendencies and the stuff that they've taught their players throughout the years on how to defend the 3-point line. That's been a constant for so long through so many different teams, even that awful lottery team in 2013-14. And they can't even do that this year. There are so many worrisome trends. There really are.
And when you look at the roster, you don't have a whole lot of hope for the future. I mean, there aren't a ton of guys that are in that young guy category that you're looking at and thinking in a couple of years from now, he's going to be a starter or he could be a major rotation type guy.
Well, he might be a starter, but then he'll be benched for 4 games after that.
Leave Romeo out of this, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Or he's not healthy.
Hey, he hit a 3.
It's just crazy, like the back and forth between the roster and the rotations. I don't want to rehash everything we've talked about, but I just can't get over it. It's been like that all season long. This isn't a one-time thing. I mean, Brad will turn to one player, and then you won't see him again for a week, or a guy will play 20 minutes, and then he'll play 2 minutes. Or
you know what, though? When you look at the roster, the one thing that they're lacking, really all of them are lacking. They don't have a badass.
They don't have that. I know, but that's why when
what kind of
Tristan
badass?
Thompson,
I'm talking about a guy that when he gets in the game, he may not make a shot. He may not get a rebound, but he's going to make his imprint on the game in a positive way.
What is Marcus Smart supposed to be?
He's a starter. They
He's
need
been a
more
starter,
than one.
John.
He's a starter for them. And Marcus, and I'll say this about Marcus. I think Marcus has really gone out of his way to just kind of be a more calming influence, which to me is bad because I like it when he's not that calming influence. I like it when he's a badass because I think he's such a great player when he's doing that.
Okay,
I think that's when he's at his absolute best.
Put him and Thompson on the bench, and then let them come in with some swagger and start freaking dropping bodies. Okay.
They should honestly. When Thompson got into that little whatever you want to call it at the end of the game, we're like, good to see a little attitude, good to see a little toughness because these guys seem to be getting punked out there. Game after game.
There's no shame about it, Jimmy. They are
badass attitude, and like Bobby said earlier, like the blueprint's out on these guys. Punch them in the mouth to start the game, and that's it. They might claw their way back and make it look interesting, in the second half, but they more often than not don't have what it takes to actually make the comeback and take the W. Like they come out flat and they just kind of stay that way, and it's exactly what happened today. I mean, I don't know what it is about, especially these Sunday games.
They've got decent players, but they don't have players with an edge about them.
No edge.
And that, to me, to have pretty much an entire roster other than maybe Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown to some extent, Tristan Thompson here every now and then, but for the most part, they don't have guys that play with an edge. I mean, I look at a guy like freaking Brad Wanamaker. If he were on this team, he would be one of the leaders in edge.
Oh God,
does he play?
We already did that.
No, he used to. He used to play for the Celtics. That was crazy.
He could absolutely play with these guys.
No, I mean
he's got more edge than most of the Celtics do.
It's like what we were saying after the Nets game, right? There's at least 3 or 4 players that you're like, man, if the Celtics had that guy, and some of those guys, they're third string for the Nets. It's like the Celtics trying to match the third string guys with guys who are coming right off the bench. Is supposed to be instant game changes, or at least change the dynamic.
You know what?
You shouldn't need players with edge to beat Charlotte without 2 of its best 3 players.
But you should need players with edge just in general, you don't have fallen through these lows. I want to say one other thing from our talk with Perk. I asked him about this is more about Robert Williams. Like, get KG on the phone and have him spend an offseason or a stretch of time with Robert Williams, transform him into this, badass, KG style. Obviously, there's only one KG. I understand that, but get that sort of mentality in him. And Perk basically said, like, all it would take is a phone call from Danny. So, like, I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying get KG on the phone, but put some players around these guys that maybe can show them what it's like to play with some attitude. I retweeted a tweet from Gary Washburn. It was like, Evan Turner is in Jayson Tatum's ear right now on the sidelines trying to get him, out of the doldrums. Like, more of that stuff, more of those players around. They can kind of just, like, snap these guys out of whatever, zombie-like funk that they're in, whether it's, I don't know if it's, like, off-the-court stuff that's carrying onto the court or what, but it does feel like these guys just don't bring that level of intensity that I think Boston fans are used to seeing over the last 20 years or whatever it is from athletes.
Beyond that, Jimmy, and you're right. Like, you definitely have, like, you got your athletes and then the guys who kind of kick it up a notch and, like, bring that sort of energy. But to me, it's just lack of professionalism at this point. Like, this is your job. Like, you can't go out and, like, throw those lazy passes or, just come out and play low effort. Like, we're not even talking about guys who get in each other's face and, like, have a tough guy kind of mentality that people can feed off of. We're talking about guys who are just kind of like, I'm not really sure I feel like playing in this game today. Like, that's just lack of professionalism, lack of maturity. It's not just lack of toughness. Like, that's just not acceptable. And again, it starts top down. Why are you critical of players like Tatum? Because your best player can't do stuff like that. He can't do it. That can't be the guy who leads you if that's the kind of stuff he does. Like, you can have off shooting nights. Yeah, you can't have off effort nights. You just really can't have them.
You can't. And that's a trickle down effect too. I mean, like, your energy is contagious, your attitude, and we joke about, like, the smiles and all that stuff. Like, it's way more than that, but it's just your body language. Perk talked about that a ton, actually, didn't he? He talked about the language on a team that you can tell when a team is a championship level team. You can tell just by looking at the body language. They're helping each other up. Look at the bench. He says, look at the bench when a team's playing well, and that'll tell you all you need to know about, like, the togetherness of a team. And I mean, I'm not saying the Celtics. I haven't looked at the Celtics bench enough but I can probably venture to guess that they aren't the tightest knit, closest team, just based on the way we see them play out there.
So Sherrod mentioned this too, and this is a factor in all of this as well, is when we look at Evan Fournier, who still hasn't made a shot since coming back from COVID and has largely looked completely out of sorts, not doing much of anything. Yeah. And it's not just the 0 points. I think we could accept that, but not finding other ways to get involved and contribute.
Nothing.
I don't accept that, actually.
The defense that I was so impressed by before his hiatus is gone. So again, he's just sort of running back. Yeah, he's running back and forth out there, not doing much of anything. And we've seen this at times this year when they're trying to integrate. Yeah, Romeo might have been a better option today. When you're looking at, we've seen it with Kemba, we've seen it with Tatum coming back from COVID, various other guys that have been in and out of the lineup this year. When they start to integrate them, whether it's no practice, not enough ramp up time, conditioning wise, Thompson's been the lone exception that's been unable to integrate themselves right away. It seems to throw off the whole team, the fact that you're giving these guys major minutes. And Sherrod hinted at this, what's the constant these last 2 games? This guy getting heavy minutes and just being out of position on the offensive end of the floor, getting burned on defense. It's a major problem, and I don't know how they circumvent that, but we've seen it a couple of times this year, and Kemba's the one that comes to mind most of how something was going well. We remember how well this team started. Then they inserted Kemba, and it just completely collapsed for the next 10 games.
Yeah, I mean,
minus 21 assist differential. Their worst since December 5th, 2004 against the Kings. 3 short of a franchise record. That's from Jared Weiss. Just the discrepancy in the work of the ball around.
They had 39 assists. The last time an NBA team had 40 assists was in 1996.
Wow.
And the sad part is Charlotte probably left about 5 or 10 on the table that they should have had.
As an aside, I love those Kings teams because the best passing teams out there are the ones with great passing bigs, and they had Divac and they had Chris Webber, who are phenomenal passing bigs, and those teams are so fun to watch when you have guys being able to distribute from all over. And
those teams are underrated.
I love that team. That's one of the 2 of the best passing forwards of their era, both on the same team there with Divac and Webber. Awesome.
Jason Williams too.
Awesome.
Stud.
Yeah. Anyway,
don't forget Peja Stojakovic just hitting every 3-pointer possible, so those assist numbers would trickle up.
Yeah.
YouTube it, kids. Look it up.
No, it is. That was the sneaky underrated team. Really,
those are the teams in NBA history that don't get credit because they didn't make the finals.
Yeah.
Well, NBA Live, so 2001, I used to drain threes with Stojakovic all game.
People are talking about it here, Jimmy, with Rob on the passing stuff. How much are they missing that offensively right now? The ability to, because you talk about ball movement stagnates, which means more dribble, which means more guys getting trapped, which means more forces, which means more turnovers, which means more guys trying to pass the ball into windows and places that they're not comfortable doing because that's not their main role. I do think that is the trickle down off of no Rob with the ball movement and the offense and the turnovers. Is real at this point because he makes a huge difference there, and they don't have it. You've got black hole Tristan who gets it, can't really do anything with it. Everybody surrounds him. He either gets stripped of it or he kind of kicks it back out. And now you're scrambling late in the clock.
He just leans over.
Yeah,
and nobody's honoring a shot outside of 5 feet from Tristan as they would Rob too. So he's clogging the paint a little bit more too. It's preventing guys from maybe driving to the rim the way they typically would. So there's a lot of reasons there. Are we concerned about Rob? We mentioned this.
That's what I want to talk about next.
I'm very concerned.
I wanted to segue there. This is pretty. I mean, you guys all heard it, and we were talking about it on the text thread. Just catching the people up here. We went from when the injury started. Exact quote from Danny Ainge was, "I don't think it's a big." I mean, from Brad, but we're looking at this like a day-to-day thing. When it was described as soreness, he's still on the injury report with knee soreness. Today, Brad's comments are, "We think he's getting better, and we hope to see him sometime soon." That's not at all definitive at all. And I don't know what's going on here, but at this point, this has never been a team that's been very transparent with injuries. But this at this point just feels like absolute just cover up. I mean,
so I do think
tell
something.
us what it is, right?
I do think something happened in between those two comments because they had that practice last week in the middle of the week, and he went full go in that. He was a full participant and had to be taken out, it sounded like. And there must have been some sort of regression there in whatever happened because he didn't play the next night. The plan was to have him practice that night and then play the next night. I think it was Thursday against the Suns. Yeah, that was supposed to be his return date after the Wednesday practice. So something happened in that practice that obviously set him back. And, again, I talked about this injury being directly related to the blood flow issue that he had in the draft there, at least in terms of like how it's described. That was the blood flow behind the knee is what he's dealing with now, the inflammation behind the knee. So that obviously raises red flags for me. This is the exact thing that turned off many of the teams in the draft. And so, we look at the history here and how some of these things seem to escalate from how they're initially described. I'm hugely concerned.
Well, I'm concerned because, one, the impact that he makes on his team. Two, the fact that, as Bobby, you pointed out, it's not like this is something that's coming out of left field. This is something that has been on the radar with him from a health standpoint for a while. But if this team is going to have any shot at being, as John loves to say, the best version of themselves, they need Time Lord to be out there on the court.
Yeah,
They're 2-3 since he went down.
Because of all the little things that he does, and that's part of their problem. They don't have enough people who are excellent role players in the little things, like setting screens, making a bounce pass to a teammate who's wide open, making the hockey assist when you know that if you get it to Tatum with his defender out of position, he can either attack and go to the rim, or he can just raise up for an open shot. Little things that don't always show up in the stat sheet, but when you're watching them play, you realize, wow, Time Lord is like kind of a big deal to this team. And when you look at what they're doing in his place, it's not even close. They're getting nothing even remotely close to someone who can impact at that position. And it is literally throwing off the games of everyone else on the floor.
Absolutely, Sherrod. You said it best. You said it perfectly, man. And I just want to add, it took a while for Time Lord to get here, whether it was setting those hard screens without fouling, whether it was not jumping for every single up fake, whether it was having the hands to catch the ball in traffic for the easy putback. All this is so important for the Celtics team on both ends of the floor, because on offense now that part of his game is what's elevated this offensive, to get open looks for guys, that from behind the arc, all easy looks that now are not available because he's not there, and then defensively, we already know what he does there, constantly applying pressure, whether it's on the pick and roll, whether he's on the switch. It's taken him, I don't know, the better of the past 2.5 years or so, or 2.5 seasons for him to get there. And this setback, I just think honestly the Celtics are being precautious. Now, if we don't see him this week, then I'm big worried. Okay, then I'm very scared. I'm like, where are we with Robert Williams?
But this goes back to that
shutting
thing.
him down for the postseason. I hope that's not the case, but again, we'll have to wait and see. I'm believing Brad on this one, but we'll see. We'll wait for a couple of days and see if he's out there on Tuesday.
Does the whole roster need to be healthy for them to even be able to compete, though? I mean, come on. I guess this game especially. I know Rob would have helped here, but Rob's absence wasn't the issue.
Bobby, it shouldn't, but oftentimes it does. That's the problem. It shouldn't. A game like this, they should win going away without Rob Williams, but they didn't because they played like ass. Brad has a post-game comment a short while ago. He says, I don't think we've won a single game this year when we've played subpar. And so they don't have enough. Jimmy said this at the very beginning of the year, and we talked about this. Do they have the horses to just walk into a gym and win without their A stuff? And the answer is no. They are not good enough.
They did it during that 8-3 stretch, and they haven't since.
Yes, they're not good enough to coast to victory, which means they need max effort, and it's a hard thing to do. The shortened schedule, people missing time. It's not ideal circumstances to go in there and bust your ass every single game, but every game they've gone out and played shitty or subpar, even for very few of those have they been. I think there's maybe, which game was it? They played one
Some
game
of the magic ones.
One game where they played only in the fourth quarter recently and they won. It might have been a Memphis game. I forget what it was. They've had a couple, but really not many. For the most part, if they go out there and they play subpar, they lose.
So that was your Mad Brad quote. I like this one. We got outplayed, outcoached, and out hustled.
Yep, that wasn't my Mad Brad.
That
was just that was my reality check. They don't have
that quote.
Yeah.
you could take that Brad quote and apply it to so many games this year. I mean, nothing's changed. Like, this is the same team, right? I mean, we talked about it against the loss to the Nets. I was like, I'm not even upset about this because it's honestly what I expected. You know what I mean? Like, this is the same team. They haven't really changed. Yeah, they won on a little bit of a win streak. That was nice. You know, every team does at some point. But fool's gold for the most part. You know, they are who they are at this point, I think, in the season. And the Rob stuff, real quick, because I didn't comment on it. The thing that concerns me about Rob is that, like, yeah, his minutes ticked up, but we're not talking about a player that was going 30 minutes a game. He never was.
Right.
So it's fake. Everyone wants to say, oh, you know, Brad was right. You know, they shouldn't have put his minutes that high. He's still playing low to mid 20s at most. So if you can't get that out of a player, then I mean, I don't know what you can't expect anything out of him. I don't know. I know Bobby's, I think, somewhat connecting the dots and saying that, you know, the issue with him going into the draft is the same issue that we're seeing now. I mean, I don't think anyone's come out and said that. It's more speculation. But if that's the case, then they shouldn't even consider re-signing this guy, because then what you're saying is he can't give you more than 20 minutes a game, or else he's going to have to, you know, gonna have knee soreness and miss significant time. So
But
really,
re-signing him always comes down to the dollars and cents, Jimmy. I mean, if you're looking to re-sign him and pay him $25 million a year, that's not a good investment.
Right.
But if he's looking to make significantly less than that, you know, then it's worth it. If you can get a quality 20 minutes out of him. So the price point, I think, is going to be interesting that they come to, because this is not good negotiating leverage for Robert Williams when it comes to getting a new deal done.
Well, they're not going to extend them. You know, they're not going to, you know, guarantee him years into the future with that concern, and others that they have. They'll take him to market. They obviously know that other teams haven't been as interested in him as they would have liked, or he would probably like eventually when he gets to free agency. So that's when they'll probably get the deal there, when he goes into restricted free agency. And no one's willing to give him a massive offer sheet, and they'll probably get a good deal on him then.
Perhaps. Well, what I wonder, John, I think you may have mentioned it, is something that can be fixed easily with off-season surgery. Not, you know, we're not talking about major ACL tear reconstruction here. You're talking about something that, you know, they can go in there and I'm not a doctor. I have no idea what they would do, but alleviate the situation that's causing the pain.
There's supposed to be something
give
you
him
could
time.
do.
Jimmy's always talking about being a doctor.
No, but like
in this case, I'm not much of a knee doctor.
I remember reading about it back then, and I remember it being written off as something that like causes cramping from time to time, but usually in most people goes away like minutes later. In severe cases, they're supposed to have situations where you could theoretically, it could damage nerves and arteries and cause different problems there if it was severe. But like Rob hasn't had it flare up really in 2 years. And he said when he had it in the draft, he hadn't even had an episode of it since mid-high school. So like it's a thing that like, same thing. Oh, one day you're like, oh man, I feel a little whatever there, and then usually goes away. Like that's kind of, I think, what it's been. So for something here going on, that makes me worry that like we've gone into the bad area of where this injury could go. If that is what it is, and you're talking 6, 7, and 8 games, unless it's something different, but it sounds exactly like what's described.
Well, you almost never hear about
this. Back of the knee, above the calf, a circulation issue that causes cramping and soreness in your calf area. That's why they're calling it below the knee. It's just what they talked about out of college. So that would suck. But it really isn't a thing that has. It's different than the hip, you know, which is what's kept him out. So I don't know. I mean, I really don't know there.
I think that's what scares me, because it's not, you know, it's something different. It's not the hip and the history behind it, you know?
Yeah. So we are going to head over. We have opened a room. Okay. So we're going to close it off here. So we're going to take it over there. We're going to talk about a couple things. Are you guys concerned about Rob? We want to hear anything you want to talk about. Are you guys concerned about Rob? And you know, what are we thinking here with Brad? I know, like I said, the chat is lit on Brad stuff, so I want to know everybody's thoughts. One thing I wanted to talk about with the Brad situation is, we're talking about Wick being worried about spending money to go into a tax. You think there's any chance they're going to fire a coach they extended this season for 5 years in year 1 of the extension?
No, they're not gonna.
Zero chance.
But how big realistically is that window, though? That's the conversation.
I'm saying that would be
because it's not that big.
Stunning development to extend a guy and fire him less than a year after that extension. Stunning. I don't see it happen. Why does Bobby do this? Bobby, you got to come in.
He's messing with you, man. He's got to be messing with you at this point, man.
Every time I say I'm going to locker room, Bobby goes away.
And you called him out in a big way on Friday, and he's doing it again.
He just did it twice.
he's messing with you.
Bobby, you got to come in.
This is his dark humor side. Is what this is.
It is.
Look at this.
There he is again. There he is again. There he is. I sent him out this time.
Oh my God, spazzing right now.
Yeah. There he is.
You know why? We haven't talked about Cornette. That's why.
I put this in my head before the game, too.
You stay doing this, Bobby.
You guys talk about Cornette. Sherrod and I are going to head over again. Locker room, download it on the iOS chat. We're going to talk for about 30, 40 minutes here and wrap it up. It's a Sunday afternoon. I want you guys to go have your Sunday dinners. This is a shit game, but I know people are angry, and if you want to get some of that out right now, come join us. Sherrod, any thoughts here for this group before we head over?
No, I just want to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Let's go.
He's about to get
Let's go to locker room.
You sound like the Celtics.
Let's get it.
Charlotte.
All right.
Exactly. I'll see you.
Let's get it.
All right, see you boys over there.
So, Bobby, what the F, man? Were you messing with him or messing with John, or what's going on?
No, this was the game where I had in my head in the fourth quarter. I was gonna be perfect with it.
Bob, I can't.
I completely botched it again. So here we are. I'm going to have to write it on my computer on like a sticky note or something like that. But either way, Jaylen Brown's.
Hold on, real quick though. Get into the perk, man. Get into what what he said Friday night that got you thinking about this team. Got you thinking about Brad Stevens' role with the Celtics.
I'm starting to piece together all the things that they haven't done this year that typical Brad Stevens teams do. And just his conversation with Tatum, the way he was able to get through to him, and Brad seemingly couldn't on some of those things. And again, just hear Perk describe it the way he did resonated in a big way, because they legitimately do have the players here. They do have the talent on a night like, or an afternoon like today in particular.
They have two players.
And
you don't even know who's showing up on one day.
They have more than that. It's just the health. I mean, that's what's most frustrating, because throughout that 10-game run, or whenever, what was it, the 6-game winning streak throughout that span, like, it was relatively a healthy Celtics team. No back-to-back Kemba. He was playing every single game, and it just gave Celtics fans hope. I think that's what makes all this so frustrating right now.
Well, it was a good month. It was a good first 2-3 weeks of this month up until this weekend. And to see that disappear as dramatically as it did here, and for them to just seemingly ignore the emphases coming in this one. I mean, if you listen to Brad pregame, he went on a tirade about ball control. And for Tatum to go out and do that in the opening minutes, it's just like that tune-out factor that Washburn talked about earlier in the year. Like, are you guys just not listening to the points of emphasis night in and night out? Like, is the practice not resonating from last week, things that they talked about in that one? There's just these little attention to detail things that Brad is pressing. Like, I don't think he's dumb. I don't think he's missing stuff. I don't think he's even having all that many games where he's not coaching well. But the guys aren't absorbing it. They aren't executing what they want to do. We know what the Celtics want to play like. Jimmy said it during the show. The Hornets, that style, Brad has said it all year long. We want to play like the Utah Jazz, but they're not even close. And so I don't think Brad is a bad coach. And I've said all year, I wonder who you could even get that's better than him. And that's what Perk couldn't answer. He said like Sam Cassell and didn't really have any other names. So that's still a concern there if you end up firing him.
See, that's the hard part about the whole Brad thing, because most people, or at least I get the sense that the people who are like, get rid of Brad, they don't have a viable replacement option, because otherwise they would go hard with that take. I think that's the biggest thing. Well, also, I'm not look, when I say this window isn't as big as what people think it is just because he signed that extension, what I mean by that is if next year, mid-season, or even towards the tail end of it, if the core of this team feels like they need a new voice, or Danny Ainge feels that way, or if the general consensus is that, it has to happen. Like, it's happened so many times throughout the NBA in the past 15, 20 plus years where that just happens. A coach's voice people just start to tune it out when that core has been there for an X amount of years. Celtics could reach that point. If it's not next season, right? The year after that, depending on how this year ends, and of course how they go into next year, how that transitions, how this year transition into the next one.
Well, it's a good point by John that they extended him. That's a ton of money long term to throw in the trash can. And this was a weird year too. As a principal, I don't think any teams, especially in college, should be firing coaches this year just because of everything that's gone on. I just don't think it makes sense, especially since sports legitimately couldn't be playing anyway this year, and they've just decided to go ahead and deal with the side effects of it. So I'm not in general in favor of firing a guy, but at the very least, they got to bring some new voices in here. I know Perk volunteered his services indirectly on the call there.
I think he's already done it. Like that phone call for Jayson Tatum, that's a long way.
Well, and honestly, it kind of gives you a peek inside the minds of how some of these younger, newer athletes, how they react, and how they think, and what matters to them. I think Perk said it's also to us is like these guys are very in tune with what's being said about them. They're all on their social media, scrolling through whatever before the games. Like I think they really do pay attention to what people are saying and thinking and talking about, and I think they probably do respect. Maybe not. I think they do respect, but I think they put a lot of weight into what a lot of these former players are saying about them and all that stuff. So maybe, like you said, Josue, having a couple former NBA players, aside from like Evan Turner, I think he's probably somebody that has a good voice in that locker room. But more players like that maybe can get through to these players. I noticed that some, quotes are starting to come out on Twitter from some of the players after the game. Looks like Kemba Walker said he's not really sure what that pain was that he felt in his side, but he says he still hurts a little bit and he's going to maybe get some more information on it tomorrow, so we'll wait and see if anything comes out there. And then the other thing that stood out to me, a few reporters were tweeting what Jaylen Brown was having to say after the game, and Brown essentially sounded pretty upbeat, I guess was one of the words I saw, but basically wasn't dwelling on the loss and admitted that the Hornets came out with more energy and played better than they did. So on one hand, I don't want them to be sulking and be all upset about losing. But on the other hand,
no, they've been doing that all year.
Right. So I don't want that. I don't want to see that type of quote. But on the
honestly,
other hand,
as soon as you started off with Jaylen Brown, I thought that's what you were going to say, that he was sulking.
Well,
so that's good.
On the other hand, just chalking it up to, they came up with more energy, but we've been playing well lately, so we'll let this one slide. It's like at the same time, like there's no excuse for the way you guys came out today, and there's no excuse for them playing better than you today. You had your full roster essentially. So I think a little responsibility would have been good to hear too. So
here's the other thing.
John's in our ear to get over there.
Well, I want to hit on one more thing. I've been piling this up in my head for a while now.
Supposed to keep that to yourself.
I've been thinking about all the different things Brad has said this year that haven't resonated. And someone asked him about resting Tatum, which I think today obviously would have been a sound day to probably do that. 3 games in 4 days, 5-7 against a team where they're overall relatively healthy. I think we would have been fine with Jaylen and Kemba leading the show here today and trying to get a win against the undermanned team on the other side. They could have even done it after that turnover, sat him down for a while and just let Jaylen and Kemba roll with this. And how long this year have we been saying Tatum needs a night off? Tatum needs a night off. He's exhausted. He hasn't gotten any time off this year. And someone asked him about it last week, and he said, yeah, we're planning to get him one next week. We just really haven't had the chance. And it's just like, you hadn't even thought about that to this point. Like, right. and you're not planning that out. That's something that has obviously hurt this team this year. These nights where he looks exhausted. And
it looked like he took the game off anyways, to be honest.
That's true.
Yeah.
But
it's like Max used to say, if you don't take that break, your body's going to take it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's a mistake that they've made all year, and they're just starting to think about it now as the season begins to wind down. That's just frustrating. I think his excuse was the bodies haven't been there, but again, today the bodies were there.
But that's the thing, Bobby. I mean, it's tough to try to squeeze in a rest for him because it's like the Celtics need to start winning these games. It's that winning streak obviously put them in a good spot, but they have to keep going at this point because you can't fall into that playing game. And I still like the chances of not, having to do that. But still, I mean, especially throughout that span, what was it, 53 points? He followed it up with 28-point performance, 32 points after that. He found that stride, but then,
let's look at this week because Brad, and we've tossed around that idea of Kemba playing the back end of back-to-backs. It's Tuesday against Oklahoma City. Wednesday against Charlotte and Boston, and then Friday in San Antonio. So which one of those days is going to be the Tatum rest day? Which one of those days is going to be the Kemba rest day? And then obviously that Charlotte one means a little bit more because it's a direct competitor for that play-in tournament. They're what, a game and a half back of Boston now? So Steven said Kemba's going to sit against Charlotte on the Wednesday because it's the back end of the back-to-back. So you're not going to sit Tatum there. You're not going to sit him against Oklahoma City, I don't think. Maybe. I guess that's a possibility. It's just like...
Whatever. Who knows?
They got to find it somewhere.
It's impossible to know. Yeah, they do. They do. And I just want to say to the people commenting that I'm the reason of the vibration sound that you're hearing. My phone's been on my lap. So it's either Bobby or Josue. Every time you guys are getting a text, somebody's
tell your
phone's
Tinder
vibrating.
girls that you need a break. All right, tell them that you're busy right now. Yeah,
It's Bobby. It's definitely
it's not
Bobby.
Me.
I like
my
this
phone.
one
Your
right
phone
here.
is on your desk.
I like this
All right,
one.
Josue.
Does Mitchell need nights off, or Luca, or Fox, or Jimmy, or Josue, or Bobby? Oh no, or Booker. He said, never mind.
Yeah, but
Good point.
No nights off.
It's different
Sometimes
here
you need
because
nights off. Sometimes
everybody's been out on the Celtics except him, and he had that COVID hiatus, but that was in rest. So like everybody else gets the night offs, everybody else gets the rest, and he has to take a greater load on when those guys are out. So he has underwent a higher burn than anybody this year, and the schedule's been condensed and all that stuff. Well, you can just tell there's certain nights where he just doesn't have the energy, and
it's probably like how John feels some nights. He really takes nights off, so he has to pick things up for the squad.
I will say we have had few down nights here on the show, so that's a credit to something. But we do take games off. I've been away. Josue's been away.
Once in a while.
Jimmy takes the West Coast ones off. We've all been in and out. John, the constant. All right, we're going to lockerroom.com or locker room app. Join lockerroom.com if you got to get the app.
Join us. Let's do it.
And we will see you over there. Bring your questions, bring your takes, bring it
game?
all. Tuesday against Oklahoma City. Celtics have a 3-game homestand coming up to wrap up April. Then we're on the May in the playoffs.
We'll see everybody then.
Don't mess it up, Celtics. Don't mess it up. Oh, wait, real quick. Shout out to the new KG book. It's incredible, guys. I can't stop reading it. What is it?
You can read?
KG to AZ to KG. That's what it is.
If you were loving those Perkins stories, you got to dive into that.
Yeah, I can read, Jimmy. You should check it out, too.
You can't read the title, but you can read.
You probably know a few of these stories.
I do.
It'll be reminiscent of those of that era for sure.
I'll just borrow it after you're done with it. KG doesn't need my money, man. He's got plenty.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you online.